I'm LM Spilsbury. Today our topic is going to be the indie writer experience. This was actually Kim's idea, and I think she proposed it because she's still riding the fence on whether to go traditional or independent, whereas I have published 2 books independently. And just for those of you who may not know, I'm sure you all do, but I had to educate my husband just the other day. An indie author is an independently published author or a self-published author. Where to start? I yeah, I know. I started down the indie route because I had read reviews from writers who had been published traditionally by small publishers. I think I've mentioned this before, and with some of them, they weren't terribly happy with the experience, and when they could, they got the rights back for their books and then flogged them themselves. And I think a lot of the reason that many of us writers might be scared off by the idea of publishing independently is because when you publish independently, you're now responsible for everything, not only writing the book, but choosing the book cover, which isn't a bad thing. You get a say in what the book cover looks like, but you also have to promote the book yourself, and you have to do everything. And most of us who write love the writing part, but are really intimidated by the rest of it, which is really the business end of it. And I determined, I determined early on that I was just going to enjoy the whole process, even the drudgery stuff. And I've actually ended up finding it to be quite interesting and quite a challenge to try to improve. Kim, you were asking me something before we started. What was it?
Just about the marketing end of it.
Right.
You know, what marketing strategies you were using to promote yourself?
Well, I'm sure a lot of more experienced indie writers will probably roll their eyes at what I did, but I was just starting, and I'm trying out different things. The first decision I had to make was whether to publish exclusively with Amazon, so that would be Kindle, or whether to go wide, which would be to publish on various different platforms, including Amazon, and that would include places like Kobo, Apple Books, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. They're the ones that I know about.
Yeah.
And I decided that I would go wide, in other words, publish not exclusively with Amazon. One of the challenges with that is that the only way that you can run a sale on your book where you give it away free is to enroll in Kindle Unlimited. And in order to publish on Kindle Unlimited, you have to publish exclusively with Amazon for 3 months, for a 3-month block. And so by the time I figured this out, I had already published my first book wide. Mm-hmm. And so I decided for the remainder of this series, since I had started that route, that's what I would do. I have another series that will be starting next year, and I'm probably, maybe, going to try publishing exclusively with Kindle, at least for the first 3 months, to see what it would be like, because I understand that a lot of readership comes from Kindle Unlimited, and of course I don't have access to that. Kindle Unlimited is a program that Amazon offers where you pay a monthly subscription fee, and then any book enrolled in that program you can read for free. So it's really a good program, I think, for people who read a lot.
Right.
Because for $10 a month, they can read a lot of books. In order to be noticed, you have to advertise. I mean, that's definitely a given.
Yeah,
If
I
people
have
don't,
noticed. I have noticed the most successful people in the indie publishing spend a lot of money on advertising. Like
yeah,
probably a good 30 to 40% of their profits goes back into marketing.
yeah,
So I have seen people who are making six figures, but if they're being transparent about it, and some people do tell you how much they've spent in marketing, and it's a lot. Like so even though the six figure number looks lovely on paper, you know, most people aren't really telling you how much they're spending to make that. It's kind of
yeah,
like I always attribute it to like someone who wins at the casino. You know, they tell you about the $5,000 that they won, but they never tell you about the $6,000 it took to win that. So, you
yeah.
know, it sounds great and all, but when you get down to the nitty gritty, it's probably not as good as you think it is.
That's right. I know. As a new author, nobody knows about me, and so I, you talk about people earning six figures. Well, I barely earn three figures, so so it's pretty much a given that anything I spend on advertising at this point has not paid for itself, and I think you just have to accept that when you're starting. It's going to take a while in order to make yourself known and to build, hopefully build a following. But definitely it does cost money to publish a book because you have to pay for a book cover, you have to pay for promotion. If you're using an editor, you have to use an editor, and there's all kinds of other specialists out there who would love to be able to help you and part you from your money in the process,
Yes, for sure.
right? And so it's kind of the chicken and the egg. How much do you spend, and how long do you accept a loss before you make a different decision? I don't know. I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of indie publishing, at least at the beginning, is a labor of love. You have to love writing and love telling stories. And my attitude at this stage is, well, if I can make a little bit of money, then that's great. But I'm not going to beat myself up because I haven't earned a lot, because what's the point of being depressed over something that you don't have much control over? Now, to that, I will add that marketing strategy is important, and this is something I'm just figuring out. My initial marketing strategy was to promote in ebook on ebook promotion sites, and I just followed the formula that one of my mentors had used, which was to promote every day during the book's launch week, and at a different promotion site every day. I recently read on Readsy, which is a site that helps publishers or helps authors to publish with advice and information. And they said you shouldn't promote the book for more than 3 days in a row. And when I actually looked at the sales figures for my last book, Kindle did provide a graph showing the sales every day. I did do most of my sales the first 3 days, and the last 2 days I only sold a couple of copies, and yet I had spent money on advertising on those days. So in a
Right.
way, I guess the advice to only advertise for 3 days is good advice. So, and also, Kim, I've told you this, I've read that different authors will say, well, you have to find what works for you, because I tried what worked for another author and it didn't work at all for me.
Right.
And I had to do something different and figure out what worked for me. So it's pretty much a learning experience, I think. And that's why I think, in my case, my decision to just enjoy the process was really important, because otherwise it could be very demoralizing.
Yeah.
And I think that success in this business is going to be something that comes in the long term.
Yeah, it's a
And
marathon, not a sprint.
it's a marathon. And I think it's more important to put books out on a regular basis
Well, I
than,
think too that a lot of people say you have to build your mailing list, but I've subscribed. One of the things that I've noticed people will do will they'll offer a free download of their book, of one of their books, if you sign up to their mailing list. And but I've done that to get free books, and I have like subscriptions, like their mailing list, and I have their newsletters coming through, and I must admit I'm really bad about reading them unless you're somebody famous, so it's kind of a catch-22. It's like no one's going to read your newsletter unless you're famous, and unless you're famous, so it's kind of like it's hard to get famous without anybody reading your newsletter. So you are sort of pushing the rock uphill, the boulder uphill, but I have heard of people saying build your newsletter list, and that's a good way to market yourself, but it's an uphill battle even to do that.
well, yeah, you're right. I can't really speak to that. I do have a mailing list. I have to admit I'm not very good at mailing out to my very small list on a regular basis. The benefit I have achieved from my mailing list is that it has helped me find beta readers when the book is about to be published, because it's good to have reviews going up about the book very quickly after it's published. And if
So
you can,
you're talking more about ARC, like AR.
yeah, sorry, yeah, ARC readers,
Yeah.
advanced reader copies. Yes, you're right. And so I have found ARC readers through my mailing list, which is handy. But there again, my numbers are small, and my ARC readers have been small in number as well.
Right.
So all of it, I think, is something that is a long process, and I think you have to have a plan. I'm just realizing that, and I'm working on formulating, I suppose, a business plan.
Right.
But at this point, getting the books written is really the most important thing to me, because without the product, the rest of it doesn't really matter.
Right.
And as you know, writing can be a very rewarding experience for some time, and the rest of the time you can be sitting there staring at the computer screen thinking, uh-oh, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Now what do I do, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like you're spinning your wheels for a while till you get back on track. So in some ways, I think that the indie publishing business is a business, it employs a lot of people, book cover designers and promoters and editors and all these people. And at the end of the day, I don't know, the writer, as I've said before, is the one who kind of gets paid last.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're not earning enough from your books, you have to find the money from some other source to subsidize your book,
Yeah, for sure.
right? But on the other hand, you can speak to the experience of trying to even get an agent to represent you if you want to publish traditionally. And even that's not easy, and it's a very long-term process, right, Kim?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
you can't be you can't be in a hurry for that either. So because that's
that's right.
sometimes that takes years, and it might take you 3 books to finally land an agent. So it's a long-term goal as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that those of us who are writing because we love it, we definitely need to keep writing, and we need to continually improve our craft. But we also need to be patient, because if we think that we're going to become rich and famous overnight, that is not the case.
Not going to happen.
Not
No.
going to happen. And that's the way it goes.
Yeah, that is the way it goes.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm sure there are all kinds of topics that I should have touched on, and I can't think of them offhand, and we've gone for 15 minutes now,
Okay.
so this is probably enough for today, but if any of you out there have any questions, uh, send them in the comments, and we'll do another session later on, and we'll talk about those.
I know.
Thanks so